Disclaimer, these are all my opinion. Keyword opinion, it's not fact.
Baby, we built this house on memories. Take my picture now, shake it till you see it. And when your fantasies become your legacy, promise me a place in your house of memories.
Hey guys, it's Izzy and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we are going to be talking about some controversial tack training, all that, just controversial, unpopular opinions. So, let's get started. I actually have not looked at any of these yet, so you will be getting my raw opinion. Let's get started. To begin with, here's a pretty simple one. Spurs and whips, asked by NW Photography with 2 Y's. Like any piece of tack, I believe spurs and whips are okay if used in the correct hands and if they're being used properly. For example, when I'm riding dressage and when I'm riding dressage, I use a dressage whip as an extension of my leg because my horse is very new to dressage, and if he does not understand my leg pressure immediately, I can take the dressage whip, since it's long, and kind of tap behind my leg to ask him, hey, I need you to move your butt over, or things like that. And in jumping with a crop, I can, for example, if he's looking like he's going to refuse, I can kind of tap him to give a little extra, hey, go. Or to encourage him when to jump, distances, all of that is kind of a little, hey, pay attention, go type tool. So in my opinion, they're fine. Also by NW Photography, bits and hackamores. I'm going to do this kind of combined. Bits, like spurs and whips, they're fine if used in correct hands, and also hackamores. But here's the thing. I do not like people who sit here and say all bits are abuse, you have to use hackamores and bitless bridles and all that, because I would not say that's true. Some horses prefer mouth pressure compared to facial pressure. Some horses do not like you to pull on their face. So some horses do prefer bits. Bits are not abusive when if you're using one. I kind of tend to have a belief, I think everything personally can be done in a snaffle bit. If trained correctly, your horse can go in a snaffle. You don't really need leverage. I mean, I do understand in certain instances, like cross country, some horses in a little bit of higher levels, they get excited and they might need a little bit of leverage so the rider can, be like, hey, because you're going at very top speeds in cross country, so you can be like, hey, calm it. But I feel like everyone can do a snaffle, so that's my opinion kind of on bits. I'm not a big fan of everything else, but hackamores, like I said, they're fine. But some horses don't like facial pressure, so you have to consider that when you're looking at getting a hackamore. Clicker training's awesome. It's super cool. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I don't really know a lot about it, so I can't really form an opinion on it. But from what I've seen, I think it's pretty cool. Teaching a horse to rear. Not the biggest fan of teaching your horse to rear, not gonna lie. Because I feel like it can be dangerous in some instances, especially if you're teaching them to rear while you're sitting on their back. No, not the biggest fan of that. Tack put on wrong. Polos, boots, it's just simple. Don't do it. Fit your horse correctly, or if you're going to use polos, wrap them correctly. It's that simple. Barrel racing, like all disciplines, it can be done correctly and it can be done wrong. I'm not a big fan of when I see barrel racers overusing, but there's other disciplines that do this too, so don't think I'm just stereotyping a discipline. But I don't like when I see a bunch of like overuse of aids and kicking, and no. I mean, this is my personal opinion. How would you like to run if someone's sitting there kicking you in the ribs? Would you want to run faster? No. So I don't understand how repeatedly kicking a horse is going to make it go faster. Because I sure would not like to run if someone was kicking me repeatedly in the ribs. But barrel racing's fun. Opinion on eventing. Eventing is awesome. Whether or not to blanket or shoe or clip. Okay, blanketing. If you have a show horse in the winter and you're planning on showing it and it's getting worked frequently, you probably should clip it and blanket it. If you have a horse that you're not riding very frequently and it might be out in the pasture, then don't clip it if it grows enough hair and everything. That's my opinion. Shoe clip. Shoeing or just clipping. Certain horses do need shoes. There are people out there that say no horses need shoes, but no, there are horses that need shoes. Mine is one of. My horse is a prime example. He went barefoot for about a year and turned up lame. He was completely out of line up to the knee because he has one crooked foot. Like his normal horse leg is kind of like this. His kind of turns in a little bit. And he has to have a special shoe on that foot to build it up so it's even and it keeps him in line and then he can move properly. It's just that simple. Some horses do need shoes for that. Also, like, I'm just going to use eventing as an example. They need studs. For example, cross country, if it's very slick. You know, people need shoes for different reasons, but going barefoot's awesome if you can do it. Use of draw reins. Not a big fan of draw reins. I believe horses should be taught to, one, learn to round their back and completely use their hind end before you try forcing them into a frame, because that usually, once they're moving properly, will come naturally. They'll do it. So, yeah. Oh, and that was from Izzy.DeCosta. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce names. I'm very sorry. Trot Don't Stop asked, jumping in a Western saddle. No. Here's my opinion on this. They make jumping saddles for a reason. Use a jumping saddle if you're going to jump. If you're going to do Western, like barrel racing, use a Western saddle. It's that simple. Because Western saddles are not made to be jumped in. One, because they don't conform to the horse's back properly. And two, there's a horn. If you try and go into proper equitation, you're literally going to jab yourself on the horn. No. A lot of people asked, big lick. No. I don't understand why someone in their right mind thinks it's a good idea to force a horse to do such an unnatural movement that's hurtful to them. I don't get it. Why can't Tennessee Walkers do have a beautiful gait naturally? I don't understand why you would want to make it that big and ugly. Essentially, you're not making it prettier, you're making it ugly. So, to put the horses through that type of pain, why is that? Why would you do that? It's not worth it. Jumping with martingales. Perfectly fine. I'm not really that big of a fan of seeing people jumping higher with a standing martingale. Because horses sometimes need to, when they're landing, they need to be able to raise their head, and the standing martingale kind of prevents that from happening. But running martingales I'm a bigger fan of, because horses still have leeway and can raise their head. It just keeps them from getting out of control. Trot Don't Stop. Double bridles being used incorrectly. Here's my opinion again. Back to the snaffle thing. I think all horses can be ridden in a snaffle. And I really think if a horse is finished correctly, they should be in a snaffle. I do understand in instances such as high-level dressage where double bridles can come in handy, because when you're asking for more intricate movements, it can be helpful. But if you don't know what you're doing with an item of tack, then don't use it. This goes to everything. If you don't know what you're doing with it, put it down. Okay, I got this twice. Inexperienced riders training wild mustangs and or young horses. I'm very opinionated on this one. So here's my, okay, mustangs, they're wild animals. They're different than regular horses. Horses have been domesticated. Mustangs are wild. If you are not a proper trainer or have a proper trainer overseeing what you're doing, and you do not have proper knowledge of how horse body language works, you do not need to be messing with a Mustang, and not just for your own safety, for the own horse's safety, because you're probably the first human that this horse is getting, or this Mustang is getting to interact with. And if you mess up, then you are setting such a bad example of humans to this Mustang, and they're probably going to be a little bit messed up for a while from that if you don't do it correctly. They're different. You can't just, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't need to be training a Mustang. It's just, don't do that. It's not, well, yeah, your safety and also the horse. You have to really, you can't just think about yourself on that one. You have to think. Saddlebred eventing said, selling horses. Selling horses is fine, but here's my opinion. I understand someone needs to sell a horse because they are moving up in the levels of riding and their horse maybe not can do that much. Completely understandable. You can sell your horse. But when it comes to horses who have had traumatic experiences in their life and might be a little bit older and you have had them for a long time, that's when I would say maybe no to selling. For example, I would never sell my horse because he's been through a lot of traumatic things in his life and I've owned him for so long, I really don't think he would be able to go to a new owner because of all the stuff he's been through. KN Equestrian, coaches who have no business being coaches. It's simple. Don't coach. You don't know how to work with horses and work with people, then you have no business being a coach. No business. So stop it. People that buy their child a horse for a holiday as a gift when they are inexperienced or not knowledgeable about proper equine care, don't do it. I mean, just keeping it fast and simple. Don't do it. Vanessa Ann, horse racing. Horse racing can be fine in some eyes. Just like all disciplines, there can be wrongs in it, and there can be wrongs in it. There can be bad things, and so you can't really just hold a discipline to a stereotype because there always is going to be people who do it correctly. So, yeah. And lastly, from Aubrey Holland, nosebands. See, when asking about nosebands, I feel like you have to be more specific because there's many different types of nosebands. There's figure eights, there's just regular flash noseband, there's just a regular cavesson, like no flash. There's drop nosebands, there's Micklem bridles, and there's some others, but just not coming to my head right now because each noseband works differently. For example, the figure eight is made so it equalizes and puts enough pressure on the horse's face, while a regular flash noseband, if you are going to put it on the horse's face properly, it would actually be too low for the flash to be situated properly. Also, I really don't think you should be using a flash noseband if you don't have a reason for it, and if your reason is just to tie your horse's mouth shut, then don't do it. I mean, it's that simple. But when you're talking about nosebands, you just really have to specify which one you're talking about because they all function differently, but my main idea is if you don't know why you're using it, then don't use it. If you're using it because you think it's pretty, don't use it. If you have a legitimate reason from your trainer why to use it, then you can use it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. That has been my controversial tack video. My camera's blinking because it's almost at 20 minutes of me filming, but it will be cut up and all of that. But thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. I hope I really didn't offend anyone. Don't judge me on it, I guess. This is just how I think. But yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. I make new videos weekly. And yeah, see you next time, guys.